Welcome everybody to the High Return Real Estate Show. This is Jeff Schechter, aka Shecky, and I am super excited for today's show. We have really an amazing guest, and today we're going to talk about how to leverage your local realtor's expertise. And the guy we have on today is actually pretty famous in the real estate world. He was the top REMAX agent nationwide in 2004. He was the top Keller Williams agent nationwide in 2006. The man owns multiple businesses. He's a New York Times best-selling author and in his own right, a podcast rock star. So I'm going to save the names until we come back from the break, but you are in for a really great show today. Welcome to the High Return Real Estate Show, the podcast for heavy hitters. 2 men, 1 mission. It's time to build your empire. Welcome back, everybody. We're happy to have you. This is Jeff Schechter with the High Return Real Estate Show, and I'm here with my amazing business partner, Mr. Jack Gibson. How you doing, Jack?
Shecky, I'm great, man. I'm back from a 9-day cruise, but I got kind of bored, so I'm ready to tackle real estate once again.
What I love about it when you come back from vacation is how ready you are to work. And
right.
I know how much you miss it. It's fun. We have a good time with this stuff. So it's exciting. But today, the big excitement is the amazing guest that we have on board. And I introduced him a little bit about just his amazing accomplishments in the real estate world, both on the investing side and on the listing side. A New York Times best-selling author and podcast rock star in his own right, Mr. Pat Hiban. Welcome, Pat.
Hey, thanks, guys. Good to be here.
Yeah, we are very excited to have you. And I know that Jack has a jillion questions that he wants to ask. So we just really want to pick your brain. And the goal of this is a lot of our investors typically want to find out how to leverage the expertise of real estate agents in their local area. And given that you have trained so many successful realtors, we want to kind of pick your brain in that arena. So, without any further ado, I'm just going to let Jack start peppering you with questions, if that's all right.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's run. I love to work like that.
Well, Pat, turnaround's fair play after being on your podcast, and I'm going to drill you with questions. So.
Please do.
So, Pat, why don't you start off? Just share us a little bit about your background. I know you've got several areas of real estate you're successful in, and not only as an agent, as a trainer of agents, also a buy and hold investor yourself. So tell us, how did you get started? Share your journey with the audience, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Okay. So I got started through the world of real estate sales. I started as a real estate agent when I was 21 years old. Grew that business slowly over time. I was in it probably 25 years where I was actively involved. Grew a big team. Had a mortgage company, a title company, a really large team up until, say, when the market crashed. Then we started to downsize it. Then in 2010, I essentially had enough of it and had one of my agents, Mike Sloan, take over the business. And I wrote my book, 6 Steps to 7 Figures, at which time I went on book tour, went away for 7 months, essentially every week. I was in a different city, did 50-some cities. And came back from that, and he was obviously running that all by himself, and I just let him have it at that point. Still getting residual income from it, and still using my name, but he pretty much runs it, makes all the decisions, financial decisions, everything. And then I started investing, decided to start investing. I invested in I was kind of a monopoly player. I was I bought the little greenhouses, traded them in for the big red hotels, bought several apartment complexes, a shopping center, an office building, industrial space. Never afraid to sell. A lot of people get in this business and are afraid to sell or have to 1031 in. I wasn't like that. I, paid taxes, sold a bunch of stuff, bought other stuff, invested in other things. I started investing in companies. I invested in 16 startups. Then started having a couple of startups go bad. Started feeling like, that's a tough way to live. You don't have much control. My kids graduated high school. I wanted something to do again. So I created a company called Rebus University, which is an online training platform for real estate agents. Created a podcast as an advertising source for that university, and have been running that for 2 years now, and that's where I'm at now.
So lots of questions just popped up. So your book sounds intriguing. I didn't know you had a book. So tell me a little bit about the book. I mean, a lot of us want to hit 7 figures. So what is that? Tell me a little bit more about that.
It's called 6 Steps to 7 Figures, a real estate practitioner's guide to building wealth and creating your own destiny. And it's essentially it's a life story of me, but not in a chronological sense, more in a microscopic sense of what were the 6 things that I did specifically to go from, my first year I made $13,000 in real estate commissions to my best year I made over $5 million in real estate commissions. So, it's kind of a how-to on how to do that. And it can be applied to anything, really, not just real estate sales. Could be applied to all things in life. Anybody that wants to improve, it applies. I've had a lot of comments on Amazon.com from non-real estate agents, people saying, hey, I sell plumbing products and I read this and it was great. Thank you. So anyways, it's been a fun ride. It's available on Amazon or anywhere, books are sold, and the audio version is out there as well, and still gets a bunch of sales. So it's exciting.
That is exciting. So you mentioned that you kind of started off with the Monopoly game. You're speaking my language. I play that game with my son. I'm trying to train him, how to do the greenhouse to the red hotel. And is that what you started with, single family homes as far as your own investments? Do you still have them in your portfolio? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I started out with the house hack idea, back in like 1990, I bought my first house. I house hacked it. I had 2 roommates, one in the basement, one upstairs, and I lived in a bedroom upstairs. They essentially paid my mortgage for me. Then I bought another house the next year in my girlfriend's name at the time, who's now my wife. Just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary last week.
That's a monumental achievement.
Yeah.
Probably bigger achievement than the $5 million commission in 1 year.
I'll tell her that. It probably is. So I bought one in her name, and then, bought other ones. These were townhouses, like row houses. And then I didn't buy like I bought like 90 and then 92. I bought that second one. And then I think some people ask me, like, if I had to do my investing over again, what change would I make? And I think if I'd have just bought like one house a year consistently during the 90s, because the 90s were so flat, you know what I mean? There weren't any other nobody was investing. Nobody was buying. The prices weren't going up. They weren't going down, but they weren't going up. And it was just a boring time for real estate. And I think I could have certainly made a lot of money if I'd just, just bought a house a year just for fun, or continued the dollar cost average. I think if someone could buy a house a year, just like they dollar cost average $10,000 a year into the stock market, or $500 a month into the stock market, it's great advice. But anyways,
sure.
So then in 2000, so I started putting my money, wherever everyone else was in the stock market, buying internet stocks, right, and just making a ton of money. And then it all came tumbling down. 2001, I lost everything, just about. And after that, I said, screw that. I'm just going to buy real estate from now on. I'm not going to trust the stock market. I haven't really trusted it since.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in 2000, I started buying again. And then I started buying college rentals. And then I started selling them and buying into commercial stuff around 2007, maybe.
Okay.
And then, and that's it. I think, does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, it's great. So then you kind of mentioned that you kind of got out of the business around 2008, was it? Was that because of just the challenge of the market correction, or what happened?
Yeah,
there?
I was just kind of done, I think I just was, I had such a high ride. I got picked up and then kind of slammed down like a sumo wrestler. You know what I mean? Like it was a really this huge high, and everybody, no matter what you did, you looked good. You could make money. You could do mortgage. You could do title, and you can make money. You could try this advertising thing and it worked. You could try this advertising thing and it worked. So everything worked. Nothing failed. And then everything failed, right? And then nothing worked. And I've always had, I think, internally a desire to reincarnate myself and to, do something else that I'm more in control of. And I've always admired people that have been able to kind of ditch their day job and do something different. So I've wanted to do that. It was just a slow process. And I think writing the book was my foot in the door to a new arena, which was, self-help.
Sure.
That's what happened. So yeah, in 2010, I pretty much stepped out of it. And then actually we took it a full step 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. My wife and I moved to South Carolina, made that our primary residence. And last year spent almost 8 months in South Carolina. I still have a house in Maryland where I did my real estate business, but it's very liberating. As a real estate agent, when you reach a certain point, you almost become like a celebrity, right? A local celebrity. And I think I like better being a small online celebrity versus a local celebrity, because with a local celebrity, people are watching you 24/7, and
Right.
it's such an
You're
interruption.
scrutinized a little bit more.
Yeah, it's big time. And so now, I don't get pulled aside or anything.
So that led
a relief.
Sure. So that led you into your podcasting. And, one thing I think for anybody being consistent, one of the number one rules of success in my book is being consistent with whatever you're going to set out to do. And I noticed, your track record recording your podcast, you've been incredibly consistent. Like, how many episodes did you say you're in?
We're almost 600, I think, is what we're at. So, yeah, I believe if you're going to do something, it's all about consistency, right? And you guys know that, what I mean? The people that don't give up, the people that generally fail are the ones that give up. It's so we just do it, and it worked. And, first couple of years, I still didn't have it figured out, right? I didn't know what the hell, how I was going to make money on it and what was going to work and what didn't work. And and we're still trying to figure it out. But I think that's what I enjoy about it is that I don't know. So I'm kind of learning, rather than being the guy that's like, I don't want to go to that class because I already know everything. I've become the guy that's like, I need to be in that class in the front row because I don't know shit. And that feels good again,
Yeah, I want to interrupt just for a minute, Pat, and say, first of all, thanks for saying that, because obviously Jack and I are doing, for the most part, a weekly podcast. And, with our crazy schedules, even sometimes that can feel taxing. So I look at what you're doing as very inspiring. And I do agree to an extent. I know we're getting a little bit off topic, but there is an element of learning when you go out there and put yourself online, when you're doing podcasts, when you're, writing books, blogs, whatever it is, whatever kind of content it is that you're putting out, is to a certain extent, you have to get your own shit together, to use your words, within the framework of that conversation, just to be able to spew it out in a manner that other human beings can understand. And at least for me, and I can't necessarily speak for everybody on this podcast, but I find that that's been really, really healthy for me from a standpoint of my own self-awareness and own understanding of the subject matter. And so I really want to say thanks. I know I'm kind of interrupting the whole podcast here, but I want to say thanks for just being that guy that goes out there and does that podcast every day. It's freaking awesome that you're doing that. And it's a shining example for the rest of us that are really just working hard to keep up. So thanks for that.
And I think it's my pleasure. And I think as time goes on, we'll both learn how to best monetize it and how to make it so that we won't look back and go, damn, what a waste of time that was. You know what I mean? That's my biggest fear, is that I've done 600 and I'm thinking, wow, well, have I really gotten paid on any of those yet?
Yeah.
So it's like I got a wealth of knowledge in the last 3 years from doing them. Let's hope we can both make that worth something, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, givers gain, as they say. So
yeah, that's true.
What goes around comes around. So, since you're such a huge educator of agents, around the world, as you said, doing your podcast and educating other real estate agents, how are things changing for these professionals? Like, what's happening in the market that's changing, disrupting? What does that look like?
Well, as far as educators or as far as real estate?
Real estate, for the real estate professionals.
Real estate professionals.
Yeah.
Certainly the lead business, I would say, is disrupting, right? Real estate agents now more than ever are finding that the old-fashioned way of business is getting harder and harder and harder. And there's agents out there that have been in the business literally a year, 2 years, that are stealing business from agents that have been in 20 years and thought that they had their clients under their thumb. And there's agents out there that are, technology oriented, that are just taking that business, which I think is great, by the way. You know what I mean? I think it's brilliant. I love watching things get disrupted, right? I love watching things change and people go, whoa, wait a minute. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that is what's rapidly changing, is how agents are getting their leads. And, of course, that all started years ago with syndication when Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com came on and took the listings away from the agents. So the agents no longer own the lead. That's owned by somebody else, right? Just like you don't own your ads on Facebook or your friends on Facebook or your control on Facebook. They own that, even though you think you own all that stuff. They're your pictures and they're yours. No, Facebook owns that. You don't own the listings that you put out there anymore. Zillow and Realtor.com own that. And there's agents out there that figured that out early on and are killing it with these leads and killing it with social media and killing it with all these other ways to get to these leads within a couple of minutes, where older agents or agents that have been in business a while are just taking too long. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. It answered my next question too, which is how's the internet changed things? So we knocked them both out with that. That makes sense. I mean, technology is definitely disrupting businesses. And when I was at the Tony Robbins Business Mastery, the one thing that still stands out to me is when Netflix was like 45 million in sales and Blockbuster was 6 billion, and 5 years later, Blockbuster ceases to exist as a company, right? Like disruption. I'm like you, I like it. I like it. I just don't want to. I want to be the disruptor, not the disruptee. There's a side of the disruption you want to be on, right?
Yeah, it's hard to fathom when things are going good that anything is going to change, but everything does change, and some of these things that we put a lot of weight into now might not even be there. I mean, everything's going to change, right? I don't know. When people ask me, I mean, it's a great conversation. I'm sure you guys talk about it. I mean, what's your opinion? Where do you think the market will be in 5 years with regards to buy and holds and with regards to flips and the amount of cash that's out there now and the amount of investors that are out there now?
I think it's, and Jack and I have started to talk about this conversation, but I think it is stupid to ignore blockchain technology. I think when you look at what title companies do, and you look at just, all the transactional nature of what happens in the entire world of real estate, both on the investing side or the retail side or whatever, much of the antiquated processes that have been built in are there to protect people and keep people honest and all that other kind of stuff. And for the most part, blockchain that technology resolves all of those issues and can really streamline that.
Okay,
so,
can we talk about this? So let's dumb this down, right? Like right now, traditionally, through a title company, at least this is how it goes in Maryland, the buyer gets a loan from ABC Mortgage Company. ABC Mortgage Company wires it to the title company. The title company then charges a bunch of fees and gets an 80% commission on title insurance, 90% maybe, highest insurance commission paid other than whole life. And then they make that money, and then that money is then sent to pay off the other seller's loan. So how is that going to change? Can you take me through like a third grader how blockchain will change that process?
Shecky, you're the tech guy, but from what I've read and studied, it's going to wipe it out. Blockchain's going to wipe out the middlemen in a lot of different operations. But Shecky, what are your thoughts? You're Mr. Digital Marketing guy we brought in.
Well, I think that to answer your question in third grader term, I mean, essentially what blockchain technology does, this is just my opinion, and from what I know, I'm clearly not an expert. I'm going to put that big disclaimer out there, but it basically verifies both sides. In other words, it requires no need for any third-party verification, because the software, the backbone of the way this works itself, automatically says, yes, A is sending to B, B is receiving to A. We have a public register of this happening. So all those things from a standpoint of recording deeds, clearing titles, moving money, all that kind of stuff, there's now no need for somebody to place that. And I'm making kind of the quotation marks with my hands as I say the word place, because the placement is happening automatically as a result of both sides understanding that it's already out there in the blockchain. It's already out there where both parties have equally received what they were supposed to be getting out of the transaction, and there's no way to possibly tamper with it. It's out there for eternity. So again, that may be a little bit higher level than a third grade, but the way that the technology is designed to not require any third-party movement, authentication, validation, verification, that it happens automatically as a result of this tight transaction for the whole world to see and for it to be imprinted in time forever, that's going to eliminate pretty much any kind of middleman type operation. I do see it, by the way, potentially eliminating the need for realtors in general. And I know I'll probably have a lot of people be mad at me for saying that.
How?
Well, because when you can go and look at a property with a virtual tour, right, and get all the data put in front of you as far as comps and all that other kind of stuff, and you can have a robot drive you through and take you on a tour of a property that's assigned to a property. You don't need a human being there to meet you at 3 o'clock to see if you like the yellow paint. Then automatically you've now automated the entire situation. You can also put in offers through a blockchain, and they are either accepted or not accepted. And it's just going to really simplify things like, why do you need to pay a commission? And there are already sites out there, like Redfin and some of these other places. And again, I'm not so much on the retail side anyway, so again, not an expert, but we're already seeing signs of the initial disruption. And so it's not just the whole cryptocurrency thing, that's a whole nother conversation, but the blockchain itself is the backbone for what happens behind all those other mediums. And so, in a perfect world, a company like ours, which sells turnkey properties, we're going to be, and we already sell everything pretty much off market, but we're going to be in a situation where in order for us to survive, I do believe we will ultimately have to be part of the blockchain and be accepting cryptocurrency for our purchases. It's not today, but I do believe it's someday.
Yeah, probably at least 5, probably 10 years away.
Who knows, right?
Nobody who knows. No, we don't know.
The thing is, all you need is one little lady who sells her house and somebody fraudulently says they blockchained her money and sends her confirmation, and then she never gets it, or tells her mortgage is paid off, and then ends up getting a statement in the mail saying your payment is due and you're in default or something. And then, then the government steps in and says, we're not going to allow this, right? This poor little old lady over here got screwed. We need regulations and we need control, and,
That's part of the beauty of the blockchain, is that there's such a much very low percentage chance of that happening, because it's like a Google document where 100 of us have access to it all at once, and all of ours get updated at the same time. So it prevents that kind of fraud from happening. But again, I'm a rookie too, Shecky. I know you understand it better than I. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is that, yes, disruption is coming. So it's basically, what I was talking about on your show, Pat, is that we definitely need to have multiple streams of income, because you never know which part of that income stream is going to get disrupted. So for you, you've created multiple streams of income. What I want to kind of next segment here talk to you about is, so if an investor is looking for properties, and they want to work with an agent, what qualities should they look for in that agent? You train a lot of agents, so what does that look like to be able to find the best investment properties?
Yeah, I think they need to find an agent that speaks the language, right? That gets working with investors, and an agent who, one, has investments themselves, two, has sold houses to investors before, and mathematically understands it, right? I mean, think about you guys. If you're looking to buy and you get some agent that's more right-brained and like, oh, you're going to love this house, it's beautiful, and da-da-da, and you're like, okay, well, how much work do you think it needs, or what, what sort of cash on cash do you think I can get for it, or whatever, here's, or having an agent that you could tell them, this is what I need to buy. I need to buy a house that I can get at, 64% under market. I need a house that needs less than X amount of repairs. I need a house that will rent for X percent of what I pay for it. Things like that. And they can only bring you things that match your criteria, or quite possibly could match your criteria. That's really what you want as an investor when you're looking for an agent. So as an agent, you should be talking to them in that manner, and not answer like, oh, I don't know, or have them do all the work themselves.
Sure. So as an investor yourself, do you train agents to work with investors?
Yeah, on my show, we have agents that come on that only work with investors, and then I'll say to them, what are your investors looking for? I'm also in the process of building a course on Rebus University, my online learning platform, where we're actually teaching agents, or really anybody that takes the course, how to buy and hold, basically how to retire from real estate sales is what the gist of the course is. And then there I train them how to, we will be training them how to do it themselves like I did it.
Okay.
That's great. Can I interrupt just for a minute? Because I want to just kind of play devil's advocate for a minute with this conversation about realtors, and this may just be what I'm thinking in my head, Pat, but I kind of get the impression that realtors, whether they're more on the retail side or the investor side, tend to focus almost entirely on the MLS. And as a result, they tend to be missing just a ton of off-market opportunities. And so that said, like, how do you teach a realtor? Because, I'm an investor, and, I occasionally work with realtors too. How do I tell? This is the biggest frustration I have with realtors, is to say, the MLS is great. This represents, maybe 15% of the kinds of properties that I want to be looking at. How can you help me get that other 85% in front of me?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, you're more apt to get that with a commercial broker, right? Where you tell a commercial broker, here's the numbers I need to meet. Call me when you get something off market so that they don't have competitive bids. Call me, send me stuff and I'll tell you whether I'm even interested or not by looking at it on the computer. It's harder with a residential agent. It's almost impossible. I almost think there's a need for like an agent that works like a financial planner where you pay them hourly, or works like a lawyer where you pay them hourly to find stuff for you. Because if there's not a commission involved in it, or there's a risk of not getting a commission, for the most part, a realtor is not going to really spend a lot of time looking for you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I almost think as an investor, you need to have multiple relationships rather than just one. You just put it out there. Hey, I'm a serious investor. I do buy. I've bought this many houses before. This is what I need. And you tell all the realtors that. Say, call me direct, and you'll get both sides of the commission before you put it in MLS. And you go to the greed aspect of it, because once it's an MLS, you and I both know it's probably not a good deal anymore, because it's going to get bid up in this market in most areas. I think relationships with wholesalers is a great way to do it. Again, it's just having a Rolodex full of relationships, and then actually hiring people or doing this yourself, where you're actually going out there looking for houses with high grass and seeing if you can figure out who owns it and contacting them or sending them stuff. There's tons of investors out there now that are, mailing absentee owners, mailing, landlords,
Mm-hmm.
calling landlords, whatever. So to answer your question, it's a tough gig with finding a real estate agent that is going to work as hard as you want them to, as an investor for non-MLS properties.
Yeah, and your comment's great. I loved your comment about the greed factor, because I think that's obviously where the motivation comes from. It's not a judgment; it's just an observation.
Yeah,
and
I'm not by any means advocating this. I'm telling you a conversation I had with a huge investor out of New York City recently, who says he pays anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 cash in an envelope to real estate agents or people that bring him deals before putting them in MLS. And I'm from a school of in Maryland. I know of, there wasn't any of that going on, but I think in some of these other states, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and maybe I'm just naive, that sort of stuff happens. And I'm not saying that's the way to do it, but I'm saying that that's almost like the mentality you have to have is in order for you to get this guy not to put it in MLS or to get him or her to find you an off-market deal from an absentee landlord, there's got to be something in it for them guaranteed. And now you're allowed to do this legally. It's called a buyer-broker agreement, right? Where you sign a buyer-broker agreement and says, hey, Frank, if you get me an off-market deal by calling off-market deals, I'll pay you, $10,000 or $5,000 on this buyer-broker agreement. All you got to do is bring me the deal. And that way it doesn't have to be cash. It can just be a legal transfer of money to how agents get paid, and that's probably the answer to the question is finding someone that's willing to work on a buyer broker agreement where you pay them instead of the seller paying them because there's no risk.
I definitely, what you said resonated with us as we try to find deals, to provide to our investors. Once it hits the MLS, like you said, it's really no longer a good deal in most cases. I mean, obviously there's a few gems, but they're hard to find. I mean, you've really got to dig through a lot of properties on the MLS to find what we would consider a good deal. So, Shecky, he answered a lot of the questions I have. Do you have any other questions for Pat?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate, Pat, that you really help to manage, I think, expectations on the investor level regarding relationships with realtors. And I guess given this, some of this topsy-turvy, disruptive technological world that we live in, is there any advice you could give agents out there to provide more value to the investor community?
Well, I think with an agent, they have to understand that for the most part, a good investor is a numbers person, right? They appreciate math and they appreciate numbers. And if you could think in that direction and send them reports on, what's happening in what zip codes, what rents are doing in certain zip codes, certain areas with certain properties, and bring them things that would be just theirs, that's where the value lies, and actually bringing them a deal, right? Or calling them and putting something in front of them is probably the biggest value you could bring. And don't just bring them a piece of crap, look at it, figure out the numbers ahead of time, see if it would make sense as a rental or a flip, and then call them with it and say, here's the deal, here's how much it is, here's why I think it's a good deal. Not just, any old house that you look at it and you go, these numbers suck, I would never buy this.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point too, because there's lots of different strata to the real estate investing game, and that's a conversation that we have often with our investors too. It's like, well, what's so special about this house? Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. And obviously, for the most part, we're dealing with buy and hold investors. So if we can figure out exactly what their game is, what their motivation is, what they're trying to do, how long do they want to hold on to a property, what's their budget, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For the most part, we can then usually serve up something that really, really makes a lot of sense to them. We can talk about one property and go, okay, this is why this one is a good buy for you. And clearly, there are some properties that we currently have right now that I know there's one particular investor I'm speaking with now that a lot of the stuff that we have is just not right for him. But occasionally we do get stuff that is. And so it's just a matter, like you say, of, we're in this age of customization. And it almost speaks to what you were saying earlier about technology and podcasts and how do you monetize. Well, I think in general, the world is moving from this sort of, me, look at my stuff, whatever, to the way that just generally online marketing is working is lead with value. Lead with, here's why this is good for you. Here's the kind of stuff you want to know. Here's how we're going to help you. And that's what really attracts the business to you, is being able to be a valuable resource like that. And so that kind of leads me, as long as Jack doesn't have any other questions, to a final question.
Sure.
Is that, you've got so much ridiculously awesome experience, both from just being this, rock star on the retail side to, investor extraordinaire across all different strata of real estate investing, to author, to podcaster. From all the stuff that we talked about, what's the question that we screwed up and forgot to ask? What should we be asking that we didn't ask?
Maybe we didn't screw up.
What comes to mind, and I had a conversation with someone yesterday that kind of made me think this. And I don't know this is a conversation between the three of us more than it is that I have the answer to this. Should, as the market changes, we as investors be willing to lower our expectations with regards to returns?
Great question.
I've always taught, and I always look for, in the stuff that I look at, somewhere between a 10 to 15% cash on cash return to buy stuff and hold, like strictly buy and hold, right? Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of funds out there now that are saying, hey, our goal is 6%, our goal is 7% returns. And they're raising a lot of money for that, right? And I just wonder, is that good or bad? Is it just what happens, that lowers because of supply and demand, because there's so much cash that's coming into the market now? Or does, I don't know. What's your thought on all this?
Well, my question, I guess, is are you sensing like an inflation of prices right now? Are you sensing a bubble that's about to pop? And what are your thoughts on like where the market's headed right now?
I think I thought that the market was about to crash about 2 years ago. And I think now I'm actually more bullish than I was 2 years ago, which sounds weird, but a lot's happened in 2 years, right? I mean, we have a different president. We have all kinds of things going on that are great for the economy and great for, people like us. And I think it's possible that, it just can, the cycle can continue. I mean, we are at some point near the end of a cycle. I just don't know if it's tomorrow or it's 5 years from now. I mean, that's the hard part. 2 years ago, I think I thought it was going to be tomorrow. I mean, I did things like paid off my primary residence and stopped investing in anything, right? And then nothing changed. And then Trump became president. And then it's like, holy dirt, now I'm a little more optimistic, as is everybody, as is the stock market, as is, a lot of investors that I talk to. All these new REITs are popping up everywhere, right? And more money keep coming into real estate. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm really opinionated.
Yeah, I know, Shecky. I was just going to say, hindsight's always 20/20, right? So like you said, we should have bought the house, a year in the 90s and, of course, yeah. Right? I think that if you're buying for cash flow right now, I think that's, for me, I think that, and for what I'm advising other people to do is buy for cash flow, because if the market does have this correction and tomorrow or in a year or whatever, you're protected because the cash flow coming in will, should make up for any type of hit, unless you take a monstrous hit right to your valuation. But I'm not too keen on buying something and then praying that it goes up further in value at this stage in the game. I think once we cycle back out and hit a the next low stage in the cycle, then I think that's a great move. But those are my thoughts. And like you, I think it's coming. I just don't know, is it coming in the next couple months, or is it coming in 5 years? I have no idea. Shecky?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that that's absolutely the right strategy. And to further put an asterisk on it, I like to be buying the lower price stuff too, because I'm very much in anticipation of some sort of correction. I feel like the market is overpriced right now. Again, I don't have the crystal ball either. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I would rather currently, aside from the cash flow, which is the obvious, and buying strictly for long-term buy and hold cash flow, I don't want to be in the $300,000 or $500,000 properties. I want to be in the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 properties, because there is, even if we have a huge, like 20% correction, right? Then across the nation, obviously it varies from city to city. But if we had a huge 20% correction across the city, then, a $50,000 property loses 20%. It's only losing 10 grand in value. Unlike the $500,000 property, which lost $100,000 in value. Mm-hmm. So I think it's smart to be in the lower price properties right now. And I think just the other side comment is the reason that we're seeing so many of these REITs and so much cash coming into the real estate investing market is because the stock market's so screwed up. And it's so, even the average investor out there is starting to understand that most of that big money is just moved institutionally at the split of a second. The little guy at home has got really no chance of making any solid real returns. And even from a philosophic standpoint, a guy like me sits at home in front of his computer. If I buy a stock, I'm owning a piece of paper, some piece of a company where I'm trusting some random CEO 5 states away to hopefully do something with the company that he or she has. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. To me, like that just seems like a really, really big crapshoot. Whereas even in just looking at one small rental property, if I've owned it for a couple of years and I decide, hey, should I put another $5 or $6 grand into this thing to make it a little bit prettier so I can attract a little bit better renter? Should I not do that and keep with the lower rents? But like you say, Pat, there's always some math involved behind it. And the beauty of being an investor that owns the entire deed, not the REIT, but I own an entire property, is I am in control of those decisions. Even if it's passive, and even if I bought turnkey, like from a company like ours, I am still in the driver's seat in that regard. And I love that. And I think that that's a beautiful situation to be in, no matter what happens with any kind of corrections that come on a bigger scale.
Yeah,
that's good.
I like it. Makes a lot of sense.
So anyway, I don't really have anything else other than like, Pat, awesome. Huge thank yous, man. Great to meet you. And thank you so much for all the wisdom bombs that you shared with us. And I want to make sure that we put a link to your book in the show notes on our site, and a link to your podcast that I know you had Jack on as a guest. What's the name of your podcast?
It's called Real Estate Rockstars.
Mm.
Perfect. Love it. So we'll put a link to that up there.
Please
and
do.
Then a link to your site. And heck, maybe we'll even be really nice and put a link up to Rebus.
Yeah, please put a link up to Rebus. And if you want, what I can do is create a coupon called, this is called High Return, right?
Yes. High Return Real Estate. Yep.
And I just make a coupon called High Return, and anybody that's listening, I'll give 50% off. So just go in to rebusuniversity.com. If you like any of the courses on there, type in High Return, and I'll give you 50% off.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for doing that, and I'm sure our listeners will be very thankful for that. And
one last question.
Again, yeah,
Pat,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you have any way people can follow you on social media or any other way?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all over social media. I pretty much go by my name everywhere. Just type in Pat Hiban, and anywhere, any type of social media, you can follow me on there.
Awesome.
Great.
Very good.
Well, thanks again. And obviously, if you like the show and like what you're hearing, give us a 5 stars on iTunes or whatever your favorite podcast server is. And again, thank you to Pat Hiban, and thank you to my amazing partner, Mr. Jack Gibson, and thank you to the listeners. Have a beautiful day.
Jack Shecky, it's been fun, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.